So the two big questions I hear this week, last week, are how are you doing? And number two is, how long is this going to last? And, the first question is a whole lot easier to answer than the second question, although the answer to the first question probably changes from, day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute. So I thought, on this week's edition of TradeshowGuy Monday Morning Coffee, by the way, it's March 30th. I'm Tim Patterson, owner of TradeshowGuy Exhibits. I thought, I'd share some tips from working with home. Basically, this is kind of a recap of a blog post I put up a few days ago, but I thought, what? It probably makes sense to include that here in the podcast/video blog. I hope you are doing well. I wish I had the answer to how long this is going to last. Some people are really busy, others are not. I had a nice little meeting, a Zoom meeting with about a dozen people on Friday morning, some colleagues. It was great to see them. And I'll probably do that again in a couple of weeks because they all seemed very interested in having whatever conversation we were having. And it kind of shifted a few different areas during that 40 minutes or so we were online together. And so I think I'll do that again. And if I do, when I do, I'll make sure it goes in the newsletter. If you haven't subscribed to the newsletter, go to TradeshowGuyBlog.com. Sometimes you'll get a pop-up box, but if you look up in the menu, you will find a chance to subscribe to the newsletter. And by the way, if you're listening to this on like Apple Podcast or SoundCloud or something, give it a thumbs up, give it a review. It always helps to spread the word around a little bit about it. So, tips on working from home. I've been working at home for 8.5, almost 9 years. It's hard to believe. I always wanted to, but I never knew how I'd get there. And I frankly kind of stumbled into it when the company I was working for 9 years ago, Interpretive Exhibits, the owner gave us about a year heads up. He said, I'm going to retire. I'm going to shut it down. And this was middle of July in 2011, middle of the year, when he finally picked a date. He said, we're going to close it down on the 15th of July. And at that point, I had a choice. Do I go get another job? Do I go back to radio, which I'd been in 25 years, but it had been, 10 years since I'd really been gainfully employed in radio? Do I continue to try and do this? I had a handful of clients that still wanted stuff. In fact, within a year, we did a really big job for one of them. And it kind of got me going, So I just kept working it and kept trying to do sales, and slowly the business built and built. And I've been doing this for now 8 years. Last year was the best year we have ever had. This year doesn't look like it's going to be for a lot of reasons. A lot of stuff just fell into place last year, and it was a crazy winter and spring, and then things kind of fell off. This winter we had a bunch of stuff to do, but not nearly as much, like maybe a third to a half of what we did a year ago at the same time. Sometimes you just get a lot of leads that turn into projects or potential projects. And a year ago, they all came through. This year, maybe 20 to 30% of the ones that we thought were pretty good it came through, and the others just did not for whatever reason. They went elsewhere, or they decided to postpone or something like that. So, as a result, though, having worked from home for a long time, I've been down this road a bit. I know a lot of people in the industry are used to going into an office, and I've done that for most of my career. I've gone into an office or a studio in the case of radio. But being in an office, you're working with people, you see them face to face, you have meetings, all that sort of stuff. And if you're working from home, or if you only go to the office for a couple of hours a week, it's different. I mean, it can be really different. So a couple of things that I thought I'd pass along. This is from the blog post, which I put up on TradeshowGuy Blog just a few days ago. Number one, you can't do it all on your own. Now, you're there on your own, presumably on your own. You may have, family and kids and dogs and cats with you all day long, and it's distracting. So, but you have workers and colleagues you need to communicate with, whether it's via phone or a Zoom call or via email. You need them as well to make it all work out. So stay connected regularly. I think one of the most critical things is having a schedule. I finally figured this out about 5 years ago because I would just kind of do things randomly. And then finally I said, you know what, I need to do X, Y, and Z. When can I do that? And in my business, I really kind of have to respond to emails fairly quickly. So I keep my email program open, but I usually do the email first in the morning and then set it aside for a few hours. And if I need to look at it later, if I see something flagged on my screen that I should respond to, if I have time, I will. But for instance, for sales or prospecting or talking with clients, I usually block out an hour or two every morning, at least 4 days a week, and make sure that when that comes up, I shift gears from whatever I'm doing and do what I need to do in that. I also plan, it took me a while to get to this schedule as well, too. On my blog, I do a weekly podcast, which I'm doing right now. And that has to be produced, and that usually gets done on Friday or possibly over the weekend. I'm actually recording this on Sunday. But it took me a while to get to a schedule for a couple of other blog posts, and I do one on Tuesdays, one on Thursdays, usually in the afternoon, and this is after I've done morning calling, chatting with clients or prospecting or whatever the case may be. And then later in the day when I'm, I don't have too many people to talk to, I will sit down and write something, come up with an idea, and I usually have a kind of a document that I put ideas into or start a document with a title of something. So I kind of block everything out, and that's kind of how the way the week works. And usually I'm better at working in the morning, frankly, and I'll get to that in just a minute. Later in the day, my mind seems to wander a little more. The other thing I would obviously suggest is take a break. It's hard, you're not at work, you're not at your office, and you're sitting there doing something, but take a break. Get a snack, get a glass of water, get a coffee, take a quick walk, get outside, even if it's in your backyard. It's take a few moments. It really helps you refocus. I think you should have a start and stop time for your work when you're working at home. I know some people that work at home tend to work early in the morning or late at night or whatever. They keep office hours. But I think, you need to have a start and stop time. Certainly it works different for everybody. But when I start work in the morning, I work until, 3 or 4 in the afternoon, because by then I've already put in an 8-hour day, close to it anyway. And it's time to move on to something else or get away from the not so important stuff. And so I think, having a start time, stop time, instead of going back like at 6 or 7 at night and saying, I got to finish this. I'm done. And I think it's good to make that recognition. Give yourself permission to be done. It'll be there in the morning. You can get to it in the morning. Focus, of course, is also critical. It's easy to get distracted. You got a computer, you're connected to the web, you got 30 tabs open on your browser, and you got Twitter over there, and you got Facebook over there, and you got LinkedIn. It's easy to get distracted. Get away from the computer. I always find that if I get distracted, getting away for just a few minutes and then saying to myself, okay, what do I need to do next? What's most important next? And I go, okay, whatever that is. Sometimes it's, I got to pay a couple of bills, or I've got to contact so-and-so about something which I didn't have on my to-do list. And whatever the case may be, sometimes just getting away from the computer for a little bit and then going back, you're refocused and you remember what you're supposed to do. And then you work for you put the blinders on, you work for 20 or 30 minutes and take another 4 or 5 minute break. Work when you're most effective. It's different for every person. Like I say, I tend to work best in the morning. I've mentioned this on this show before. I'm writing a novel, and the best time for me to write is between about 6:30 and 7:30 or 8. Sometimes if I can get 90 minutes in the morning, I do that. After about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, my focus is just not there as much. My effectiveness, I think, drops quite a bit. So I'm up usually at 6 doing my morning yoga while the coffee brews, and I work on the book for a while. Then I crank through any email and immediate items and business. Then it's a shower, and we walk the dog, and I get back in front of the computer. It just depends, 9:30, 10. It depends on how long the walk is. So I think that's knowing when you're most effective. Some people like to work at night. They do a lot of their work best at when everyone else has gone to bed. I've been there. I was a younger man then. So. Also, I think finally, with when you're working from home, your family is home. When everyone's kind of in the shelter-at-home place, everybody's there. It can get a little nutty. Communication is really important. Your spouse may need to be working as well. You may have kids that are home from school and they need attention, or not. No matter what your situation is, I think it's worthwhile to have a discussion. Maybe have that discussion more than once, every couple of weeks, or even more frequently, about what are your needs? What do I need to get done? Maybe daily. What are you doing today? I need to do this, 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 and this. It's no fun to keep butting heads on schedules when a simple discussion of prioritizing your needs on a daily basis can usually straighten things out. A lot of people are working from home, and if that's you, just, try and work on the best way to do that. We're going to wrap it up here with this week's one good thing, and I think it comes down to being grateful. I've seen this a lot online lately. People are listing what they're grateful for because there's a lot to be grateful for. I'm grateful for my home, my wife, my kids, my family, my friends, my circle of influence. Certainly grateful for the clients that I have that I get to work with. Recovery is coming. We'll get through this. Are you ready? I may do this in the next couple of weeks, talk to people, because I know there's already people out there talking about what's next, what will it take to recover, and that might be fun to look into as well. Anyway, that wraps up this week's Trade Show Guy Monday Morning Coffee. Please go to TradeshowGuy.net, which is where kind of the central hub of everything we do at TradeshowGuy Exhibits is. I got a couple of books there you can track down. I've got the exhibit design search as well for exhibits. I've got some freebies. Just everything is right there. TradeshowGuy.net. Have yourself a great week and stay safe.